This podcast is brought to you by School Device Coverage, the #1 insurer of school devices in America. To learn more, visit schooldevicecoverage.com.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Risky Business. I'm Kathy Kaler.
And I'm Bliss Landon.
Welcome to our show. We are very excited to have you today.
Yes.
And how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you? You've been gone.
Again, I feel like I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks.
Well, you haven't. You're always traveling.
I know. And speaking of, my flight on the way back here, the plane, this is how I'm going to define it, a giant building flying in the sky. The wing was so big, like,
well, what model?
There were
plane
300 people on it.
Wow. What model? Is that like a L1011?
Here's what I learned.
What?
That we are needing to fly our international planes in the United States so that pilots can continue to have their practicing of landing and taking off.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Really?
There were so many people in this plane. I kept seeing more and more come in. I'm like, where are they putting them?
Wow. Wow.
It was cool. It was definitely a different takeoff. Like, I haven't flown overseas for probably 4 years.
As I say, when you're in that big plane, you can really feel
wow.
You can just feel it
instant.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting tidbit of what's going on in the world of flying. But this show, I think, is going to be very, very interesting. And I really hope everybody who's listening just really opens up to this science. And I know you shared with me about your experience. Our guest today is the director of neuroscience and founder of Brain Performance Centers in Southern California. This is something that I think all of us have a need to understand and possibly a need to experience this this type of, I guess, treatment, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, from my own experience and talking to other, people out there, no matter what the profession is, it's becoming very popular, and it's something that everybody knows about or they've heard about it. Maybe they haven't experienced it, but Bryan, our guest, is a friend of my husband's. And so that's how I got to meet him. And my husband wanted to experience this whole thing because he wasn't sleeping well. He wasn't feeling very productive, that kind of thing. And then I got the wife, package. So I went in because I wasn't sleeping well, and I hadn't been sleeping well for a very long time. So you go in and Bryan will get into, the details of how it all works, but you go in, there's nothing that goes under your skin. There's no pill that you take. Nothing hurts. You get a lot of goop in your hair. That's the only complaint for me as a woman. I'm like, what do I do with this hair now? So, because they put a cap on you, and it has all these, conductor places, I guess, that they have to put the goop on so that it
conduction maybe.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, before we sound any more unscientific, as I can see, Bryan is like, oh boy, they need to bring me in now.
Yeah. But I'll explain like what happened to me after we hear more about it. But it works. This thing works. Incredible. It's really amazing. It's truly astounding.
That's so cool. Well, let's welcome Bryan Hixson. We are so thrilled to have you at our show, and we can't wait to hear everything about what you do and how you started and how this is helping so many people.
Well, thank you for having me. This is great to be on the show. So for sure. So you want me to just kind of start a little bit about how I kind of got into this and kind of what the technology.
Yes, I would love to know how you started this whole thing, Bryan.
Perfect. So my background is in neuroscience, which typically in neuroscience, we're doing a lot more research and academic research and looking at the brain and how it works in different ways. And I was involved in a medical center that I was part of where we did a lot of pain management. And we had everything from physical therapists, medical doctors, psychology, really looking at all the aspects of pain management. And one of our clients was, or one of our patients was a 28-year-old school teacher that had a lot of disc pain in her back. And eventually, we kind of did everything we could from a physical therapy standpoint. We sent her out to an orthopedic surgeon, and they, diagnosed her with a degenerative disc problem, and ended up doing a surgery where they put a screw in, kind of fuse those discs together. And after she did that, she had more pain than she had ever had before.
Oh, God.
And they said, it's a foreign object in the back, and, you got to get used to it. Here's a bunch of medication. Here's a bunch of things you can do. And it really just caused her to have this complete immobility. She couldn't move much without pain, so she stayed in bed most of the time. And then you can imagine it causes a lot of depression, anxiety. Your whole life's kind of falling apart. You're a 20-year-old school teacher with 2 kids. And eventually, she was in such bad shape that her husband was actually leaving her, the kids, and she was just really, her life was falling apart. And her mom ended up getting her to do a second MRI with a little bit different type of technology, a 3D type technology. And when they did, they saw that the screw that they put in actually impinged into a nerve. And so that was causing all of her pain. And so they did another surgery, backed out the screw, kind of repaired some of the things there, but she still had the same pain. And the problem is, they said that the brain had memorized that pain pattern now. There was a little bit of scar tissue in that nerve, and every time an impulse went through, the brain's reacting almost as if there was still that screw in there. So she still continued to have this pain. Another year went by, so it's been 2 years now. And then eventually she went down. Her mom found this place, another pain management program down at UCLA Medical Center, UCLA Medical Campus, that Dr. Prager, that had introduced this neurofeedback where they could retrain the brain's patterns. And so she went down there and did this neurofeedback, and came back in our office 30 days later, walked in and said she had no more pain. Wow. And so they brought her into me to talk about, what she did and how she experienced this. And, when she described it, it's like kind of like, Bliss, when you were talking, kind of put a cap on with all this goop in the hair and stuff, and recorded the brain activity. Now, an EEG to the brain is very much like an EKG to the heart, where you'd have to have those connections. We have to have those connections. It has to go through the hair. So there's got to be some goop in there to be able to get that conductive pace through there. And it's recording the brain's electrical resting state. And they found an area in the parietal portion of the brain, the back of the brain, that was very elevated, meaning those neurons were firing away way too much all the time. At rest, when she was relaxed, those neurons were firing off as if she had full amount of pain in that area. This is the sensory integration area. It's all nerve pain, everything comes through that area. So even though the surgery was corrected and everything is down, the brain was still in this hypervigilant state in that area. And the brain causes pain. You can't have pain. You can't experience pain at all without the brain causing the pain. Okay. Everybody says that pain is all in your head. All pain is in your head. We can take from neuroscience, we do this rats all the time, where we can go in and actually cut certain connections in the brain, and you can give them, stick things right into their arm and everything. They can't feel anything. And you can also take other connections and poke in the brain, and they can feel pain where there is no pain, even in their legs and different things too. So everything's controlled in the brain. And so what they did is they put these sensors on her head in that area, an EEG sensor that was recording the electricity and picking up, and they put it through a computer, and she could see that her electricity in that area was here, this much, and normal would be, a resting state would be here. So that's like having a heart rate of maybe 110 beats per minute at rest. And you wonder why you feel anxious and you feel, like you can't, sit still. And so with that neuron firing off that high in that area, she could see it now on a computer screen. And then what they did, typically with neurofeedback, we use a biofeedback response. So basically she said that, they had this big giant circle that turned green every time she lowered the activity. So every time she slightly brought that down, and it turned red whenever she brought it back up.
Now, wait, how could she bring it down? I mean, how was she able to do that?
So the goal is, you give someone some different breathing techniques, some different, things that they can do, and you're kind of watching it, and you're seeing what works and what doesn't work. And it's turning green and red. The brain naturally will go up and down a little bit as it is, but the goal is to try and gain some control. Once you have a conscious awareness of what's going on, can you control this? People can do, we do this with heart rate all the time. You can put a sensor on your heart, and once you can see it, you can start to do things and nothing works. And all of a sudden something you just did works and it brings it down. And you can learn to keep doing that, and you can lower your heart rate way down. You can change the temperature of your skin. You can change your heart rate variability, and you can change your brain frequencies or brain waves with this, as long as typically we have no conscious awareness of what our brain's doing. But when we put it on a screen, we can actually see in real time what it's doing. So you can start to learn.
So Bryan, I have a question for you. How long have you been doing this? Because it just doesn't seem mainstream. It doesn't seem like, and clearly the brain is our, it's the pilot of our body. Have you found this to be a challenge with kind of like our regular medical community to align this?
Well, here's the thing is that, the technology, the neurofeedback technology has been around for probably 25 to 30 years. So it's been around a lot. But the problem is that there's been no science of way to measure it. And really now with the EEG, what's called an EEG brain map, where we can put that on and identify areas, this is mainstream. I mean, every neurologist uses EEG. There's not one doctor in the world that would say, no, EEG technology doesn't measure brain activity. It's very, very common. It's used more for seizure activities, epilepsy, looking at traumatic brain injuries and things like that. So now that we've combined an EEG brain map with the training and the technology used in neurofeedback, and you can see that it changes the brain map. So you start in one place with it high, you train it, and you do another brain map and it's down. That's like doing an X-ray of an arm and seeing a break, and you do some intervention and then the break's gone. So you can't really argue with it. Now there's over 1,000 peer-reviewed studies, showing the efficacy. And actually the National Institute of Health has done a large study with a $10 million grant and actually showed the efficacy equal for attention deficit to medication, except with no side effects and a permanent change. So now, my oldest son, who's 22, is just graduating here in a month from UCSD in clinical neuroscience. And, it's taught all the way through psychology now. Wow. It's taught at Pepperdine. It's taught all these things. Almost everybody graduating from a psychology degree or a neuroscience degree now will be taught about neurofeedback as, a matter of fact.
Yeah. So it's the word's getting out, which is great.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic.
It's definitely, the last 5 years have been the biggest leap, mainly because we can measure the effects now. A lot of times people were thinking, gosh, is it just a placebo effect? Or they just, is it more just a meditation type thing? You're just calming your brain. But when you can actually measure the brain's activity before and after, then you can actually see that you're actually changing the physiology of the brain.
So let me tell you what happened with me. Okay, I'll give my experience. So I went in because I wasn't sleeping well, and I had a little bit of anxiety feeling too, on occasion about whatever, mom worry or whatever it was, that was bothering me. So I went in and I had my mapping done, and I had the thing on the sides above my ears is where the activity was red. It was a red zone.
Right.
And so Bryan asked me, he said, have you had a concussion? And I said, yeah, I have. I had one about 7 years ago. I fell on a tennis court and I landed on my face. Like I fell hard. I busted my lip and I was a mess. And I know that I had a concussion. So he said that's one of the side effects is from a concussion, you can have sleeplessness, depression, anxiety, all of these symptoms, right, Bryan?
Yes, exactly.
And so you do a lot of work with patients who have had concussions, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've trained over 1,000 pro, elite, and Olympic level athletes. Majority of those are for concussion or sleep problems. You figure an athlete that's going back and forth between time zones constantly, 2 or 3. Yeah. I mean, how much it messes up your sleep, and sleep derails your performance.
And one thing that really resonated with me was Bryan said, if you didn't treat this, you would probably go into early onset dementia. Like that's what would end
But
up happening.
it gives a higher risk. The problem with
higher risk, yeah.
Yeah, traumatic brain injuries, or even light concussions, they heal, but a lot of them heal through compensation. So it'd be like me hurting my right arm really bad as a kid, and maybe it's in a cast, and so I start using my left arm that whole time and playing and doing all this stuff, and my left arm gets so strong that by the time my right arm heals and I get it back, I'm now favoring my left arm. And that continues. So it healed, the injury healed, but a compensation occurred. Physical therapists are very used to compensatory injuries where a compensation, a limp occurs because of an injury or something. And now I go 20 years later to a physical therapist and say, why am I having so much pain in my left elbow? And they would measure me and do all these things and say, you know what, you're using your left elbow 80% of the time. That means it's repetitively being strained over and over. And so for Bliss, she had a lot of activity here that, again, healed, but it healed through it's still producing way too much electricity. Those neurons are way too active. And when they're too active, you try and go to sleep with neurons firing away, thinking, and processing. You basically have to lay there until they run out of fuel before you can fall asleep.
Yeah, you hear people, they say, I can't get my brain to shut off at night. And that's exactly how I felt. So I went through this series of 10 sessions. The sessions are how long? 30 minutes, I think.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
So each time, are you putting the electrodes on?
I'm not the cap. They're putting,
Single.
a single thing. So I get a little goop in my hair, but it's manageable. And it goes over the spot that they're trying to treat.
Okay.
And so I sit there and there's a big screen and I have earphones on with music, and it's a video. It's a video of a car or a spaceship or a butterfly going through tunnels. The cars are actually racing each other. The other ones are going through tunnels with different pictures. And every time my mind would wander, the object that I'm trying to drive ahead would stop. So I'd have to clear my head and focus again on that object to make it go. And it was really interesting.
Wow.
And that was the treatment. And it's tiring. You feel like you want to go to sleep. So it's tough. You have to stay awake for it. But I did 10 of those and I'm sleeping like a baby now.
So Bryan, what happens? What is happening during that time?
Well, imagine, biofeedback's been around for a long time, and, a lot of people understand the heart a little bit more than the brain. So I like to give some examples of the heart. If I had a stethoscope on the heart and say my normal resting heart rate was 100 beats per minute, and I could put that through a video game and I can make a car go faster whenever your heart rate goes down to 99. It doubles the speed when it goes to 98, doubles the speed when it goes to 97, going faster and faster the more you bring that down. And as it goes back up to 100, the car comes to a stop. So now instead of focusing on my heart rate, your brain, or in this case, your brain's controlling your heart too through the vagus nerve, but your brain's trying to figure out, how do I make that go forward? And it notices every time it relaxes the vagus nerve in the brain, which goes down and relaxes your heart rate, it makes that go forward. It's just operant conditioning. The same as Pavlov's dog ringing the bell. This is the same as how every newborn baby learns, I cry, mom comes and feeds me. This is when this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. There's a cause and effect. And so when you're focused on the game, there's so much reward in that game going forward. When Bliss talks about, the spaceships or anything, this is going forward, it's relaxing, there's music going, and then all of a sudden the music stops and the screen blacks out, right? And then it goes and the brain likes that. The brain figures out whenever I relax these areas right underneath those sensors, that's going to go. So we're actually training those neurons to come back down to a resting state. And once you get them down far enough, they stay there. This is a injured state. It doesn't like to be there. This would be like my arm being fully constricted all the time. When you get it back down to the relaxed state, it goes down. You can still bring it up as you need it, as you're under some acute stress or things, that's fine, but then it settles right back down. So now you're more in control versus it being stuck. So
she finished the course, if you will, 10 sessions. Does she have to go back?
No, the thing is that, they claim this is a permanent effect as long as we did a final brain map on Bliss and everything was back in the normal level. So it's now fixed. Now, obviously she could fall playing tennis again, right? She could have a concussion, a car accident or anything like that. She could be under intense stress for, 6 months at a time that is unrelenting and it starts to change acute stress into chronic stress and starts to change. So there's other things in life that can cause this, but for the most part, as long as her sleep stays good and she doesn't get a traumatic brain injury or concussion, this should stay as a permanent change.
Pretty cool, huh?
Can you send us over to your front desk? I would like to make an appointment. I've had metal in my body. I've had like a seizure.
If you had your arm injured, right, in a car accident, and you didn't use it for like a year, and so you're not using it. You're using everything else, and you're straining this arm. You're not using this arm. And you went to a physical therapist. They would do active and passive range of motion, build it up. By the time you got done with the physical therapist, your arm's working. Would you be afraid if you stopped going to the physical therapist, it would go back to that injured position?
Yes, no. I'm in that state all the time.
Your normal activity of living, keep that arm functional. And that's the same thing with your brain. When Bliss is sleeping good each night, it's going up and down, up and down. It doesn't get stuck. Getting stuck takes some outward circumstance to do that.
But now you're also dealing with a lot of kids through school that have attention deficit disorder, anxiety, depression, right?
Yeah. All those things have physiological components. There's obviously psychological components, but I would argue that the majority of these things are physical at first, and then it causes psychological things. So your brain might get stuck where it can't really process much. It's slower processing, it's lower on energy and stuff, and that may cause the psychological effects of depression. But if you don't normalize the brain activity first, all you're trying to do is talk yourself out of depression. And you have that physiology that's causing the depression. So, we work with therapists to handle the physiological side and remove that. And then a lot of times, obviously, you're going to need some therapy too to retrain your brain how to think differently. But I'm telling you, therapy works like 100% of the time when there's no physiology. When there's physiology, therapy is going to be a hit or miss. And sometimes the best you can do is manage it. But you combine these two together, therapy works perfect because you get the physiology out of the way.
Wow. Now, what about kids with autism? I understand you've been working with a lot of kids with that too.
We do. And I've done a lot in the past where we've had clinics that are, ABA certified therapists and stuff. So right now, most of our clinics are not, we don't have ABA certified technicians. So we usually do more high functioning autism. With autism, what we're usually trying to do is we do a brain map and we identify a specific thing that we can fix. Maybe it might be like sensory overload or overstimulation in the brain where they put on their shoes and they can't, if there's anything wrong in the sock or this or any type of sensory integration problem. It can be sometimes textures, eating textures or things that can cause problems. Even touching the head at times can cause problems. And so usually we'll try and work on very specific things. We're not trying to claim we're curing autism in any way. What we're trying to do is take a very specific physiological problem that they may have. And I'm very specific that this is what we're going to try and fix here. And this is based on the physiology, what I predict we can fix.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
It's incredible. How many, are there multiple locations that you have? Is this just here in Southern California?
Our centers are just in Southern California. We have a Beverly Hills location down at a real prominent pediatrician down there. And then we have one in Calabasas at Calabasas Pediatrics. We have a center in Westlake Village at Engage Therapy. And then we have a center that is reopening soon. We've had it for the longest. It's on campus of Oaks Christian School. So we do a lot of their kids and stuff there with concussion injuries. A lot of them dealing with anxiety, all the way from major anxiety disorders all the way to just test anxiety or, stage fright, like getting up in front of people and you just freeze, those type of things. And then attention deficit is a huge one. Most attention deficit has a physiological component that once you remove that, people can learn. It's so much easier for them to pay attention. And so they can learn to do it very easily.
Wow.
That's just incredible.
Wow. I mean, I think everybody should do it.
Yeah.
For something. I mean, if you don't have one of those, issues.
We all have it.
We all have something.
We all have something.
Yeah.
Well, I look at this honestly, like how braces are to teeth. This is kind of like braces for your brain. It's like as a 6, 7, 8-year-old, you can correct some of this brain activity that could have been from a little fall as a toddler or some difficult thing or something. And think about if your brain activity is going good and paying attention is easy for you. If letting something go, you can just do that very easily. If someone says something negative, you can just kind of shrug that off and let it go. If you can sleep good and have lots of energy, imagine the benefits going through middle school, through high school, through college, in relationships, in work, everything you have. Every single middle schooler gets braces for their teeth so we don't have an overbite later on in life. How much more important is our brain?
So exactly. Much. So what's the youngest that you will treat?
The youngest we go to is 6 years old, because we have a normative controlled database, the largest database in the world, that goes down to 6-year-old. If we do a 5-year-old, we'd be comparing a 5-year-old brain to a 6-year-old brain. So we have to have that normative database to see where they're off on certain areas.
Okay, interesting. Okay,
so fascinating.
We go all the way up to 92 years old.
Wow.
Wow. So anybody can benefit from it.
Bryan, thank you so much. Anyone with a brain.
Anybody with a brain.
Who didn't have one? The scarecrow? Yeah.
The scarecrow doesn't have a brain.
Thank you so much. You have really, really, give us the website information, anything that people can, read.
Get in touch with you.
Yeah. Our website is brainperformance.com. So www.brainperformance.com.
Okay.
And we have all kinds of videos there, all kinds of information. Actually, just last week, we just recorded about 10 different testimonials from people that just got done after even the last 30 days. And it was just amazing too. It's the first time I've really recorded any testimonials from people. I've always kind of been against doing that and stuff. And so my staff kind of put that together, and we had a crew come down and film it. And it was probably one of the best days of my life, really, just to have, 10 people that already went through the program, but sit there and tell how it really affected and changed their life.
That's awesome.
So dramatically. It was amazing.
Oh, that's incredible.
And
you must be also very proud your son going into this same line of work.
His son is the nicest boy. Aww. He's just, I said to Bryan, I said, how did you have a son this great? Because I went to his facility in Calabasas. He goes, I don't know, but he's the perfect child. I'm like, wow, how do you get that?
Proud dad.
Yeah, but no, it's isn't it fun to have? I have 2 of my kids are working for me now, and I just love that. And it's so great to be able to, just make available something that they're interested in, that you're interested in, and pave the way for them to, hopefully follow in your footsteps a little bit and learn something great.
Absolutely. And just work together. We love working together.
Yeah, it is. It's really special. So that's great. And he's a really nice guy.
That's so great.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bryan. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon.
And I hope to see you
with
soon.
my husband. Yeah. Yeah. And you're gonna.
I'm going.
You're going.
I'm going. We have so much to do. Oh my gosh.
Yes. All right.
Thanks, Bryan.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Bryan. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
So I knew you did this.
Yeah.
But now I know what.
And I really didn't know what I was doing. I my husband told me about it. I thought, okay, I'll go in and do it. I was really upset about the goop, but the goop is worth it in the end, to be able to sleep through the night and not, have those issues anymore. I mean, it really plagued me. I was very upset for years. I did not sleep well, and that wears on you. It's hard to, it's harder to go through your days without sleep.
Well, we're, restoring while we're sleeping. We're repairing. We are rejuvenating.
Exactly.
And if you're not.
And if your brain isn't functioning properly, you're not restoring and you're not rejuvenating.
Okay, well, I'm going. Yeah. I'm going. So if you guys want to go too, check out their website. We will also have that posted on our different platforms, Twitter, YouTube. Our website, you can come and see us there at coveragequeens.com, and email us at riskybusiness@coveragequeens.com as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to Bryan Hixson, our guest. And here we go.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap for our show.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.